Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be re-gearing the rear end of this truck. We're going to be putting 410s in it, taking the 373s out. This is to match the front that already has 410s, and we're going to take it out on some rocks and do some crawling. All of this is to get ready for our trip next month to Moab, Utah and Canyonlands National Park. So you don't want to miss that. I'm going to be taking you guys along and showing you the adventures we have with this truck and the first time out on the trail with it. So you don't want to miss that. So hit that subscribe button so you know when that happens. It really helps the channel out. And go ahead and leave a comment, give your feedback. I love the feedback on this truck. You guys have been doing great on that. So keep that up. And well, I have a lot of work to do, so I better get started. So enjoy. Thanks, guys. So I was pulling the carrier and got the pinion bearing out and noticed that the pinion bearing is a lot bigger than I was thinking it should be. This is the pinion bearing that came with my kit, and as you can see, it's a lot bigger. That's got like a 4 1/8 pinion bearing on it. This one's a lot smaller. It's under 4 inches. But what I found out was this is a Dana 70 HD, and my bearing or my Regear kit is for a Dana 70U, and the carrier bearings are bigger and the rear pinion bearing is bigger, which I was going to reuse those because I'm keeping the carrier, so that's not a big deal, but my pinion bearing is bigger. So I thought, well, I'll just pull that bearing and reuse that bearing. Well, my pullers don't even fit it, it's so big. So I'm going to have to go get a bigger puller and press that bearing off of that pinion and see if I can keep it in one piece and get the shims from. I'm after the shims behind that is why I'm needing to get that off. But shouldn't be that big of a deal. Just sucks I decided to do this on the weekend, so I'm having to go get some tools before everything closes, but we'll see how I get along. So I got the bearing off the old pinion. This is the new pinion. I got it pressed on there. The old pinion didn't have any shims for the pinion depth, and this one has a 0, so we're just rocking with it. No shims for the pinion depth. and we're going to put some spacers in the shims off of the original pinion on here and see where we're at on bearing preload and throw it all together. Used a bearing separator like this to get the old bearing off without destroying it. A new one of those big bearings was going to be like $80, and I'm not going to have it till the end of next week, so there's nothing wrong with this one, so we're just going to roll with it. So we'll get after it and get this stuff installed. So turns out I was wrong. I'm not an expert on this stuff, so this is only like the third axle I've ever regeared, so don't use this as a how-to video. I'm just showing you what I'm doing. But the pinion depth shims are behind the race here, so they're back in here. You have to punch the race out for the big bearing, and they're behind there on this axle, the Dana 70. The 60s that I've redone, the shims are behind the bearing, so I got those shims out. I'm going to replace them, taking 3/1000ths out, because that's the difference between the old pinion and the new pinion, and I'll get that done, and then we'll put it all back together. So rear end's all set up and done. It got topped off with fluid. You might have saw I put some limited slip additive in that friction modifier. The differentials call for that, the limited slips. But it's all buttoned up, ready to go. One last thing is to change my speedometer gear. And this is the speedometer cable that goes up to the speedometer, and it actually is what there's a cable in here and a gear, and it reads off of that. And there's different colored gears. I have a white gear in there now for the 373s, and it was real close, and it turns out I need a yellow gear for the 410s. So we had one, and I'm going to pull that out and swap it out, and then it'll be ready to go back on the ground. So here's that gear installed. Here's the old one. I guess I'd call it clear more than white, but white is the color it's supposed to be. It goes in there. There's a corresponding gear in there you have to put in when you're figuring your calculations. But it just goes in like that. And there's a little retainer here for it. So that's that. We got the gears swapped. We're out here on a pasture road. We're going to do some testing off-roading and see how it does. So I guess we'll put it in 4-low and see how it climbs. We got a hill up here we got to climb. It's a pretty hardcore hill. It's an old road. We don't really use it very much anymore, so it's kind of all washed out, but we'll see how it does. it's a little harder than I expected. I'm used to wheeling on 40-inch tires with lockers front and rear. This has open front diff and just limited slip in the back and only 32-inch tires. So was hanging the diff up on some rocks going up that, but otherwise I think it did real good for what it is. You know, without lockers would really help it climb up a lot of those rock ledges and stuff. But if you saw down there at the bottom, there's a clay spot right there where it's got a seeping spot and a spring coming out of there. I guess that stuff just had no bottom in it. I just sank to the bottom, so I had to go around that, and that got the tires all muddy, but we made it up, so that was the goal. So far it's doing pretty good. Well, I think that just about does it for this episode. We finally got to go out and test it off-road and have some fun with it, and the gear swap turned out nice, so that's good. So I think it's ready for our trip next month in Moab in Canyonlands National Park, so be looking for that. Hey, thanks for watching, guys, and as always, like and subscribe really helps the channel out. But see you next time.